You know, sometimes a house is more than bricks and wood. It's a box of memories, a museum of forgotten feelings, a space that holds onto the echoes of laughter that once filled its rooms. For Nasrat Begum, her home wasn't cluttered. It was alive. Every item had a heartbeat. The dusty teacup on the shelf? That was Rashid's favorite. The cracked frame by the bedside? Her daughter's wedding day, frozen in time. But as the years passed and her children moved away, those once vibrant memories started to weigh heavy. Not because they weren't beautiful, but because they weren't needed anymore in physical form. On a cold winter morning, Nasrat Begum sat quietly, wrapped in an old shawl, flipping through a yellowed photo album. Her fingers traced over the black and white faces of people who no longer called her, no longer visited. The silence in her home wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. She whispered to herself, "I kept everything, thinking maybe one day someone would want to see it, but no one comes anymore." That day, her daughter arrived unexpectedly. She looked around the home and sighed. "Ami," she said gently, "why are you still holding on to all of this? These newspapers from 1998, broken radios, clothes that don't fit you anymore? What's the point?" Nasrat looked away, eyes moist, and softly said, "Because they remind me of when life was full, when Rashid would drink tea at 5 p.m. sharp, when you kids would fight over the TV remote. This is all I have left." Her daughter knelt beside her and took her hands. "No, Ami, you have me, and you have yourself, and maybe it's time we free you from the weight of these things, so you can breathe again." That night, Nasrat couldn't sleep. She walked around the house, touching each item like it was a goodbye. At 2 a.m., she opened her diary and wrote just one sentence. "Starting tomorrow, I will let go." Day 1. She picked 3 things: a stack of old cooking magazines she hadn't opened in a decade, a rusted iron that no longer worked but was kept because Rashid had once bought it, and her son's childhood jacket, too small for him, too old to give away, too full of memories to throw. She folded it slowly and placed it in a donation bag. Her hands trembled, but her heart felt lighter. Day 2. She entered the storeroom. Dust danced in the sunlight. She found a box of old spices, expired, unused, forgotten. She threw them away. Then a broken mirror that once hung in the hallway, now cracked and buried behind boxes, and a radio that no longer played. With each item gone, her house grew quieter, but not the same silence as before. This one was calm, freeing. Day 3. She opened her closet. Her wedding dress stared back at her, embroidered, elegant, untouched in 40 years. She smiled and touched it gently. "You served your purpose," she whispered, and folded it. Then a faded photo of Rashid holding their first child. She kissed it, took a photo of it on her phone, and let go of the frame. The third was a box of handwritten letters from relatives long past. She read one last time and kept only one. That evening, her daughter came again. She looked around the living room and gasped, "Ami, it's so open, so peaceful." Nasrat smiled. "I didn't lose anything. I just made space for myself." Her daughter hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you." For years, Nasrat thought letting go meant forgetting. But now, she realized, letting go meant healing. It meant remembering without the weight. It meant opening her home and her heart to new air, new light, and new life. That night, as she made tea in her uncluttered kitchen, she looked at the clean countertop, the space on the shelf where once that broken clock sat, and thought to herself, "Maybe I don't need to hold on to everything to keep love alive. Some love lives in silence, in space, in peace." She sat by the window, sipping tea alone, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel lonely. She felt light. The memories were still there, but no longer crowded by dust. And the best part? She had room now, for new ones. At 65, Nasrat Begum didn't just declutter her house, she decluttered her heart. And as the sun set over the quiet street, she smiled, knowing that finally, she could breathe. They called her Shehnaz Auntie, a woman of warmth, laughter, and a kitchen filled with every item you could imagine. From 5 sets of pressure cookers to 3 blenders that hadn't worked since 2009, her kitchen was a museum of memories. But to her, it wasn't clutter. It was comfort. Every jar, every pan, every rusty spoon told a story. That masala tin, bought on her honeymoon, that old tandoor, her late husband's favorite weekend ritual. She'd always say, "These aren't just things. These are my years, my days, my life." But one day, her niece Zara came to visit. Zara was a minimalist, sleek kitchen, 1 pot, 1 pan, and a wooden spoon. She stepped into Shehnaz Auntie's kitchen and gasped, "Fupo, are you running a restaurant here or hiding treasure?" Auntie laughed. "Treasure? Child, this is history." Zara chuckled but gently said, "Fupo, maybe it's time to let go of some of this. You don't use half of it, and you're always complaining about how hard it is to clean." Auntie brushed it off. "Beta, when you're my age, you'll understand. Everything has a purpose, even if it's just to remind you of something sweet." But that night, Shehnaz Auntie stood in her kitchen alone. She looked around. There were 15 plastic containers, most without lids, a drawer full of knives she no longer used, a corner cabinet that squeaked and held nothing but expired spices. She sighed. Maybe, just maybe. Zara was right. Next morning she made tea, sat at the table and stared at her favorite shelf. Then, with a brave heart and a hesitant hand, she pulled out the first item, an old, cracked teacup. "You served me well," she whispered, and set it aside. Day 1. She started with duplicates. 2 rice cookers. She kept the working one. 3 spice racks, down to 1. A pile of steel plates, just in case guests come. Reduced to a neat stack of 6. And the best part? Space. Real space, not just in her cabinets, but in her head. She could breathe. Day 2. She tackled the forgotten corners. That broken juicer with a missing blade? Gone. Plastic bags stuffed into plastic bags? Recycled. A mystery tin with something that might have been lentils. Once? Tossed. She laughed to herself. I think even the cockroaches gave up on this one. Day 3. The toughest day. The sentimental shelf. Her husband's favorite kettle, now rusted. A box of old recipe books stained with oil and love. Her mother-in-law's clay pots, now chipped and unsafe to use. She paused, touched each one, closed her eyes, remembered the laughter, the family dinners, the burnt rotis and perfect biryanis. Then, with a tear and a smile, she chose 3 things to keep. The rest, she donated to a local charity that helped struggling women set up home kitchens. That evening, Zara returned. She blinked. "Fupo, what happened here? Where's the chaos?" Auntie poured tea and smiled. "Chaos is resting now, Beta. I realized if I keep holding on to everything from the past, I'll never have space for new stories." Zara hugged her tightly. "I'm so proud of you," Auntie whispered. "So am I." The next morning, the sunlight danced on her clean countertops. Her hands moved freely, her steps lighter. She made tea in her single working kettle and laughed. "Now I actually enjoy cooking again." What she learned wasn't just about decluttering the kitchen. It was about honoring the past, but not being buried by it. It was about knowing that the love in her food didn't come from old pans, it came from her heart. And now her heart had room to grow. Shehnaz Auntie didn't just clean a kitchen. She rewrote a chapter. And somewhere, in that tidy little space, a new recipe was waiting to be written. Not just with ingredients, but with joy. Rafiq Ahmed was a retired college professor. A man of discipline, poetry, and deep emotion. His house was simple, but there was one room no one was allowed to touch. his room of memories. To outsiders, it was just clutter. Piles of old books, dozens of seminar name tags, expired journals, broken watches, 3 old phones, dried-up pens, and files labeled with years long forgotten. But to Rafiq, each item was a story, a heartbeat frozen in time. That wristwatch with a cracked face, a gift from his first student to get a government job. That torn file, his first published research. Even the broken lamp in the corner had once lit the night before his PhD viva. He'd say, "These things are my students, my words, my legacy." His son, Amir, had often begged him, "Abba, this stuff is collecting dust. Let's clean it up." Rafiq would always respond, "Clean your room, not my memories." But time doesn't wait. And memory, no matter how strong, begins to fade under the weight of forgotten things. One day, Rafiq's old friend and colleague, Professor Nadim, fell seriously ill. He had to be moved to a care home. His house, once filled with laughter and books, had to be emptied within 3 days. Rafiq visited. He watched as strangers boxed Nadim's books, folded his clothes, threw out his papers. No one knew the value of those things. No one asked. They were just stuff. That night, Rafiq sat alone in his memory room, staring at his seminar tags spread across the table like autumn leaves. He whispered, "Will this be me too? One day, strangers throwing away my life in black garbage bags?" The thought shook him, not because he feared death, but because he feared being forgotten. The next morning, he did something no one expected. He called Amir and said, "Come over. Bring boxes." Amir rushed in, shocked. "Abba, are you okay?" Rafiq nodded. "Today I'm going to decide what I leave behind, and what I carry forward, in heart only." Together, they began. It wasn't easy. The first seminar badge he let go of? He stared at it for 5 minutes before placing it in the box. A cracked mug from a farewell party? Kissed it once, and then let it go. A pile of student essays from 1993? He read one, smiled, and placed it aside. They worked slowly, gently, respectfully. Day 1. They filled 2 boxes with old gadgets, mobile phones with missing chargers, dead laptops, floppy disks. Day 2. Stacks of yellowed newspapers, research notes he never got published, calendars marked with birthdays of people who no longer called. Day 3. The hardest part. Letters from past students, love notes from his late wife, her old reading glasses. He held them to his heart and cried. Amir placed a hand on his shoulder. "Abba, we can keep the letters." Rafiq nodded. "Only a few, enough to remember, not enough to drown in." When they were done, the room looked strange, empty, but calm, not soulless, sacred. A single bookshelf, a chair, a desk with fresh paper and 1 pen. Rafiq sat down and said, "Now, I can write again." That night, he opened the window of that room after years. Fresh air poured in. The smell of dust was gone. The memories were still alive, but now they had space to breathe. Over dinner, Amir said, "Abba, you taught me something today." Rafiq smiled. "And I learned something too, Beta. That holding on to everything doesn't keep you alive. It traps you. Letting go. That's how you move forward." Weeks later, Rafiq started mentoring students again, from his new open space. He didn't need his seminar tags to prove who he was. His presence was enough. His words were his legacy, not the papers, not the pens. And one morning, he wrote in his diary, "I kept things thinking they were my life, but my life is in the people I touched, not in the boxes I filled." He didn't just clean a room. He honored his past by letting it rest, and chose to live the present fully. And when he passed that same room months later, he didn't feel sorrow. He felt peace. It was no longer the room of memories. It was the room of freedom. Yousuf and Zainab had been married for 42 years. They had lived in the same 2-story house for almost all of them. Every corner of that home carried a story, a mark of time, of laughter, of losses, of deep love. Now both in their early 70s, they found themselves walking through silent rooms that once echoed with children's footsteps, late-night giggles, and the chime of teacups. Their children had moved abroad. The guests no longer visited, but the things remained, shelves full of photo albums, drawers stuffed with greeting cards, kitchen cabinets jammed with crockery sets meant for dinners that never came. Yousuf would often sit in the study, staring at boxes labeled important, while Zainab would dust old vases, wiping tears more than dust. One rainy afternoon, while sipping lukewarm tea, Zainab said softly, "Yousuf, do you ever wonder what will happen to all this after us?" He looked up, then away. "They'll probably throw it all in a truck," he said with a sad smile. "Our whole life, packed in black bags." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was haunting. The next day, they made a decision. No more waiting. No more living in a house that felt like a museum. "Let's do it now," Yousuf said. "Let's choose what stays. Let's lighten the load, for us, for them." And so began their journey, not just of decluttering, but of rediscovering. They started in the storeroom. Zainab picked up a wedding gift set, still in its box, unused for over 4 decades. She opened it, looked at the pristine plates, and laughed. "We were saving these for a special day. Turns out every day was special. We just didn't know it." They donated the set to a young couple down the street who had just gotten married. Yousuf found his father's old shaving kit, now rusted and brittle. He held it, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Abba, thank you." Then gently placed it in a memory box, just one box for each of them. Only the most sacred things. The rest? Let go. Day by day, room by room, they peeled back the layers of time. In the bedroom, Zainab opened a drawer full of silk scarves. Some she hadn't touched since her 30s. She picked one, pressed it to her face, and then folded it gently for donation. "Someone else might feel beautiful in this," she said. Yousuf found dozens of ties from his teaching days. He kept just 3. The rest went to a charity that helped men prepare for job interviews. The living room held the most emotional weight, a cabinet filled with crystal pieces that no one ever admired anymore. They wrapped each one in newspaper and sent them to an old-age home to decorate common rooms. "Let someone else see the sparkle," Zainab smiled. But the hardest part was the attic. That room held trunks of baby clothes, school trophies, broken toys, and photo frames with faces frozen in time. Zainab sat down, pulling out a tiny pair of shoes, her son's first. "He's a father now," she said, voice trembling. Yousuf knelt beside her. "Yes, and we gave him everything he needed. We don't need to keep the shoes to prove it." They cried, not out of pain, but release. They kept a few letters, a few drawings, a few black and white photographs. The rest, passed on, passed forward. That evening, the house felt lighter, and not just physically. The air was different. The light entered more freely. Their movements felt easier. Zainab cooked a simple dinner. Yousuf played her favorite ghazal on the old record player, and for the first time in years, they both sat in the lounge, not surrounded by things, but surrounded by peace. A week later, they invited their children for a video call. The kids were surprised to see clean walls, tidy rooms, and calm in their parents' faces. "Ami, Abu, what happened?" Zainab smiled. "We just made room. For life." Yousuf added, "We've left you memories, not mess." That call ended with laughter, with love, and with a sense of completion. The next morning, Yousuf wrote a letter and taped it inside their wardrobe. It read, "To our children, don't worry about cleaning after we're gone. We already did it. Take what you need and let the rest go. We want you to remember us with joy, not exhaustion." In the days that followed, neighbors dropped by, surprised to see them so radiant. One asked, "Did you renovate?" Zainab replied, "No, We released. That's more powerful than paint. The truth was, they had made the hardest decision aging people often delay: to prepare, with love, for a graceful exit. Not because they were dying, but because they wanted to live better while they were still alive. And then one morning, they sat together on the porch, watching the sunrise with 2 cups of tea and nothing else but silence. "Do you regret giving anything away?" Yousuf asked. Zainab shook her head. "I only regret not doing it sooner." He smiled. "Me too." The sun rose higher, birds chirped in the quiet garden, and the house behind them, once cluttered with forgotten things, now stood like a temple of light and love.